Right now, we are a day away from a hearing on a motion that Moab filed earlier this year. Moab's motion is essentially a request that the court dismiss the lawsuit, arguing that it's not allowed under Utah's governmental immunity statute.
And what are they claiming in terms of the governmental immunity? Are they using certain specifics to say, here's why this is in play?
They're arguing that in this situation, because Gabby was killed by another party, by her fiancé, that the governmental immunity statute bars that claim for wrongful death. We're arguing in contrast that the Utah Constitution protects that right to recover for wrongful death. The Utah Constitution says that specifically that the right of action to recover for injuries that result in death shall never be abrogated and shall not be limited by statute, which of course is what the governmental immunity statute is. So we're asking the court ultimately to hold the governmental immunity statute as unconstitutional in this situation.
They wrote, Petito's murder is tragic. However, Moab did not cause Laundrie to murder Petito. And in their conclusion, they said Moab did not cause her murder. So they seem very confident that their role 2 weeks prior or so did not actually result in this. What are you going to mention to them about other circumstances that led to Gabby's death and why ultimately they are at fault?
Well, the argument tomorrow is not really about what they did wrong, but we've alleged negligence, that the officers failed to properly investigate and that they knowingly failed to follow the law in responding to the stop. And we believe that they ignored Gabby's injuries and important witnesses that would have revealed to them that she was the victim and that she needed their protection, and they failed to do that.
As you know, there's a lot of eyes on this case. There always has been, and there probably always will be with anything that has to do with the Petito family, specifically Gabby. So looking at change as a whole, when it comes to protecting domestic violence victims across the state of Utah, or really across the nation, what does this highlight here, and what is the importance and the value of what you're trying to do?
Well, it's really important to the family to raise awareness of this issue, of the problem that domestic violence is, and the problem that law enforcement's interaction with domestic violence victims can be. Specifically, we would want officers to have more training on how to respond to domestic violence calls, and more resources need to be allocated to help victims of domestic violence. Here in Utah, the lethality assessment protocol that was passed last year, and the sharing of data across agencies for victims of domestic violence has already saved lives, and we believe will save more lives. It's this kind of systemic change that the Petitos are seeking.
What are the Petitos seeking specifically in the lawsuit against the city? For those that don't know, because it's now been dragged on a while, what specifically are they wanting out of this?
Well, specifically, they're wanting Utah law enforcement agencies and Moab to make changes so that this kind of thing won't ever happen again. Now, in a civil case, they're asking for money because that's the only thing that's available in civil court, and that will be determined by a jury ultimately.
So generally, where do we sit in this case? I know I asked you towards the beginning, but where are we in the process of what needs to happen tomorrow to obviously make things continue, because they filed the motion to dismiss. So if it's ruled in favor of Moab, would you be done, or would you go for another avenue?
If the court tomorrow grants Moab's motion for summary judgment, then we would file an appeal and ask the Utah Supreme Court to interpret the Utah Constitution as protecting the Petito's right to proceed with this claim. Of course, if the motion is denied, then we would proceed with discovery and move forward towards trial. Just that the family remains undeterred and determined in their efforts to go forward to honor Gabby's legacy and to make the kind of change that she would want and that would protect other victims like her.
In representing the Petitos, has that spearheaded anything else for Parker and McConkie? Other similar cases or things that also span into this realm? Has this been, I guess, a catalyst for driving force for other families that are hoping to also have some change, regardless of where they are?
Yes, it has happened. Specifically, you'll recall the family of Amanda Main, the cousin of our lieutenant governor, was killed in a similar situation by her ex-husband, and in similar fashion, the officers there failed to protect her and failed to follow the law in when they responded to her call, and that case would turn on the exact same interpretation of the law of the governmental immunity statute and the Utah Constitution's protection of wrongful death claims.